Welcome to the Rickynomics Brief. Today we're discussing transnational crime, Venezuelan gangs, and U.S. retail theft. Brought to you by the Institution of the Americas for Strategic Business Intelligence. I am your host, advisor, and analyst, Rick Alonzo, Rickynomics. Disclaimer. This is an unclassified brief for educational purposes only. This episode presents analytical work on transnational crime networks. It does not provide targeting advice, financial advice, or consulting on a specific named individual. The purpose is to examine the structure of criminal enterprise, the conditions that enable it, and the policy implications that follow. Bottom line up front, executive summary. Venezuelan organized retail theft in the United States is often misread as survival crime by desperate migrants. That framing is incomplete and produces the wrong policy response. The stronger assessment is that Tren de Agua, TDA, and affiliated networks use migrant vulnerability as a recruitment environment. U.S. retail as a supply source, legal threshold gaps as risk management, and resale channels as monetization infrastructure. The visible actor may be the migrant stealing goods from a store, but the controlling structure is a criminal enterprise that recruits, directs, coerces, and extracts profits. The response, therefore, cannot rely on only social services or street-level arrests. It requires shelter hardening, network mapping, prosecution tools for pattern-based theft, e-commerce resale monitoring, and cross-border disruption of command and logistics nodes. Opening context. Today's brief examines Venezuelan gangs and organized retail theft in the United States. The purpose is not to generalize about migrants or to sensationalize transnational crime. The purpose is narrower and, more important, to correct false explanation that has entered parts of law enforcement policy and public conversation. The common explanation presents Venezuelan retail theft as a survival mechanism. Under that view, migrants fleeing an economic collapse steal because they lack food, income, or stability. That condition may describe some individual circumstances, but it does not explain the organized pattern. Pattern examined here is more structured. It involves recruitment, coercion, product selection, movement of stolen goods, resale channels, and profit extraction. Those are not features of isolated survival theft. They are the features of organized criminal exploitation. This distinction matters because the diagnosis determines the response. If the problem is treated mainly as migrant poverty, the policy response will center on services, shelter capacity, and economic supports. Those tools may reduce vulnerability, but they do not dismantle a criminal network. If the problem is treated as an organized exploitation of migrant vulnerability, the response changes. Law enforcement, prosecutors, shelter operators, immigration attorneys, retailers, and platform compliance teams must identify how recruitment, theft, resale, and coercion connect. The issue is not whether migrants are vulnerable, many are. The issue is that criminal organizations convert that vulnerability into labor and profits. That is the mechanism in which this brief examines. Operating structure of the TDA. Tren de Agua operates as a transnational criminal network with roots in Venezuela and expanding nodes across Latin America and the United States. Its structure allows to operate across borders while limiting exposure to any single enforcement action. Leadership and command influence remain tied to Venezuela, while operational coordination has expanded through Colombia. Colombia matters because it offers access to established smuggling corridors, informal logistics networks, black market contacts, and migration flows. A criminal net group does not need to build a new infrastructure when an existing illicit system can be accessed, rented, or partnered into. From these command and coordination nodes, The network can support activity in the US cities with three useful characteristics: large retail markets, vulnerable migrant populations, and established resale channels. New York, Miami, and Houston fit this profile because they combine retail density, migrant concentration, transportation access, and informal market activity. The retail theft itself is the only visible stage. The broader structure includes recruitment, direction, collection, storage, resale, and the movement of proceeds. Each function can be compartmentalized. This protects the higher level actors because the person stealing from the store may not know the full chain and may not control the profit. The structure creates resilience. Arrests at the point of theft may remove individual operatives without disrupting the system that recruited and directed them. Recruitment and coercion. The recruitment mechanism is central to the assessment. Agua and similar networks benefit from the access to people under pressure. Migrants who recently arrived into the U.S. may face unstable housing, income, unclear legal status, and weak support networks. Those conditions create vulnerability. Criminal organizations treat vulnerability as an operating resource. Recruitment may not begin with the gang language. It may begin with offers of quick income, transportation, protection, or access to work. Once a person enters the network, the pressure can change. The organization can use debt, intimidation, immigration fear, threats against family members abroad, or social pressure inside housing environments. This is why the survival crime frame fails. It focuses on the visible economic hardship, but it misses the organization that converts hardship into criminal labor. A migrant involved in theft may be culpable, coerced, exploited, or in some combination of those categories. Investigators and service providers need enough sophistication to distinguish between them. Treating every participant as only a criminal can miss coercion. Treating every participant as only a victim can miss operational responsibility. Protect the network. The practical question after an arrest or intervention should not stop at who stole the goods, should continue into who recruited the person, who directed the activity, who received the merchandise, and who controlled the resale, and who captured the proceeds. Shelter and community exposure. Shelters in low-cost housing environments are not the only cause of crime. They are potential recruitment environments because they concentrate people under pressure. That distinction matters. A shelter system built only around humanitarian support may miss signs of criminal infiltration. A shelter system built around suspicion of migrants may damage trust and reduce reporting. Neither posture is sufficient. A stronger posture is protective, hardening. Shelter operators, immigration attorneys, community organizations, and law enforcement need a shared understanding of coercion indicators. These may include unexplained control by outside individuals, repeated pressure to leave at specific times, possession of goods inconsistent with normal circumstance, fear of specific people, sudden debt obligations, or threats involving family members abroad. This does not require treating migrants as threats. It requires treating criminal recruitment as a threat to migrants. The policy objective is to separate vulnerable people from predatory networks before those networks convert vulnerability into labor. Retail theft as a supply chain activity. Organized retail theft should be understood as a supply chain problem, not only as a store security problem. The store provides access to inventory. The operative acquires the goods illegally. A handler or local contact receives the goods. The merchandise then moves through resale channels, and those channels may include informal businesses, street level resale, online platforms, or international smuggling routes. This structure changes how the crime should be analyzed. The theft event is not the endpoint, it is the acquisition phase. The value is realized later through resale, movement, and the conversion into cash or other usable value. That means the profit center may sit far from the point of theft. This is also why the organization can use vulnerable low level actors. The person taking the risk at the store level may receive only a small payment, while the broader network captures the margin. The retail store loses inventory, the low level operative carries the legal exposure, and the organization keeps distance from the act and captures profit through coordination. Legal threshold vulnerability. Legal structure shapes criminal behavior. Jurisdictions where theft below a certain dollar amount is treated as a misdemeanor. Organized networks adapt their tactics to remain below felony exposure. Yes, $950 threshold is most certainly a cited example. The issue is not only the dollar amount, the issue is how criminal organizations exploit the gap between individual incidents, enforcements, and network level activity. A group can deploy multiple people across multiple stores, keeping each incident below the threshold while generating significant aggregate value. This tactic, often described as smurf, reduces individual exposure while preserving network profits. The legal system may see separate low level incidents. The criminal organization sees coordinated volume. That mismatch favors the network. An effective response requires tools that allow prosecutors and investigators to aggregate pattern based conduct when evidence shows coordination. Isolated petty theft and coordinated retail theft directed by a criminal organization should not be treated as the same operating problem. The law must be able to recognize structure, not only incidence value. Resale, and e-commerce exposure. Stolen goods create profit only when they can be converted into value. Online platforms and informal resale channels create opportunity because they allow goods to move away from the original theft location and enter markets where buyers may not know the source. E-commerce can create distance between the theft, the seller, and the final buyer. That distance benefits organizations like the TDA. A product stolen from a store can appear online as a discounted merchandise. The account listing it may not be obviously tied to the theft. Goods may pass through handlers before resale. Payments may move through accounts that don't reveal the full network. This creates the investigative friction. Retailers may know what was stolen. Police may know who was arrested. Platforms might see a listing. Payment processors may see the transaction. But unless those data points connect, the structure remains partially hidden. Retailers, law enforcement, online platforms, and payment systems therefore need better mechanisms to identify suspicious resale patterns. The relevant indicators include repeated listings of new goods, high volume sales inconsistent with the seller's profile, and repeated product categories matching theft patterns and geographic links between theft incidents and resale activity. The resale pipeline deserves the same attention as the theft itself because it is where the organization monetizes the operation. Cross-border demand. The Venezuelan context matters for two reasons. First, economic collapse and displacement increases migrant vulnerability, which expands the recruitment pool. Second, scarcity and black market demand can increase the resale value of certain goods outside the United States. Items that are common in the U.S. retail markets may carry higher value in a shortage environment. This creates basic arbitrage condition. The goods are accessible in one market and more valuable in another. Not all stolen goods need to move internationally for the model to work. Domestic resale can sustain the operation, but the international movement adds another revenue channel and reinforces the transnational character of the network. The criminal organization benefits from both sides of the Venezuelan crisis. It exploits people displaced by collapse and sells into markets shaped by scarcity. Limits of the leadership targeting. Traditional enforcement prioritizes leadership removal. That approach can matter, but it is not sufficient against compartmentalized networks. Agua (TDA) structure reduces dependence on single visible leaders. Functions can continue through local cells, intermediaries, handlers, recruiters, and resale contacts. Leadership arrests may disrupt communication or produce intelligence, but the operating model can persist if the conditions remain profitable. The network survives through replaceable roles. If the recruitment remains easy, labor can be replaced. If resale remains open, goods can still move. If legal exposure remains low, risk remains manageable. If foreign command and logistics nodes remain intact, coordination can continue. The implication is straightforward. Enforcement must pressure the system, not only the hierarchy. Enforcement displacement risk. A narrow crackdown can create displacement. If law enforcement concentrates resources on Agua while underlying market remains profitable, other criminal groups may use the enforcement shift to expand. The result may reduce one organization's activity while leaving organized retail crime intact. This does not argue that targeting TDA. It argues for a broader operating view. The objective should be to reduce the profitability and scalability of organized retail theft across actors. That requires attention to product security, legal thresholds, recruitment environments, resale channels, and cross-border logistics. Those conditions remain. Another network can enter the space. What disruption requires? Disruption requires simultaneous pressure on three areas. First, recruitment environments must be hardened. Shelters, low-cost housing, and vulnerable communities need better protection from criminal recruiters. This requires training, reporting pathways, coordination with immigration attorneys, and a trusted relationship with law enforcement. Second, the resale and logistics systems must be disrupted. Retailers, online platforms, payment processors, and investigators need shared mechanisms to identify stolen goods movements and suspicious resale patterns. Third, the legal framework must address pattern-based organized retail theft. Prosecutors need tools to distinguish isolated theft from coordinated network activity. The law should reflect the structure of the crime, not only the dollar value of one incident, but no single pressure point is enough. If recruitment is disrupted but resale remains easy, the network adapts. If the resale is pressured but the legal exposure remains low, the tactics shift. If the laws change but the shelter infiltration continues, the labor pipeline remains available. The operating model is resilient because it spreads risk across multiple functions. The response must apply pressure across the same system. Policy implications. For policymakers and decision makers, the first requirement is to stop using the frame that collapses organized exploitation into migrant desperation. Migrant hardship may drive part of the condition, but it's not the full mechanism. A serious response must protect migrants from exploitation while pursuing the criminal organization exploiting them. These are compatible objectives. For law enforcement, the operational requirement is network mapping. Each theft incident should be treated as a potential entry point into recruitment, logistics, resale, and command relationships. For prosecutors, the recruitment is a pattern recognition and aggregation. Repeated low value thefts connected by organization, timing, product type, or resale channel should not be treated as unrelated petty offenses for retailers. The requirement is intelligence sharing. Loss prevention must connect store level incidents to the broader movement patterns for online platforms. The requirement is resale scrutiny. High volume, suspicious listings of new goods should trigger compliance review when they match known theft patterns. For shelter operators and immigration attorneys, the requirement is protective awareness. Vulnerable migrants need channels to report coercion without automatically being treated only as offenders. Analyst comment. The core error is mistaking the visible actor for the controlling structure. The person arrested at the store level may matter to the case, but that person may not explain the network. The stronger analytical question is who recruited, directed, supplied transportation, collected merchandise, arranged resale, and captured profit. This brief is not to argue that migrant hardship is irrelevant. It argues that hardship is being exploited. That exploitation is the operational center of gravity. The response should avoid two mistakes. The first mistake is treating the problem only as poverty. That misses the organization. The second mistake is treating the problem as only a street crime. That misses the exploitation. The practical response sits between those errors. Protect vulnerable migrants, identify coercion, map the network, disrupt resale, close the legal gap, and pressure the command and logistics structure. Until those conditions change, arrests will produce disruption, but not durable degradation. Three things close. Condition. Venezuelan organized retail theft in the United States operates as a transnational exploitation model that uses migrant vulnerability, legal gaps, and resale infrastructure. Next action. Map recruitment, logistics, resale, legal thresholds, and cross-border command nodes as one connected system. Owner, local law enforcement, federal investigators, prosecutors, shelter operators, immigration attorneys, retailers, and platform compliance teams. Closing. This has been the Rickynomics Brief, brought to you by the Institution of the Americas for Strategic Business. I'm Rick Alonzo. The point of this brief was not to stigmatize migrants, it was to identify the structure that exploits them. When the structure is misread, the response targets the wrong problem. And when the mechanism is understood, the response becomes more disciplined. Protect the vulnerable, map the network, disrupt the resale channel, and let's close the legal gap. And that has been Rickynomics Brief. And for the full analysis, read the complete article on the Institution of the Americas .com, the Substack, and the Patreon labeled Rickynomics. Thank you for your time. I pray for you that you find peace, and thank you for tuning in.